And welcome back to Pastor Plex Podcast. I'm your host, Pastor Pleck, along with Pastor Holland Greg. Pastor
Hello.
Holland, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks, Chris.
So it has been an Easter weekend.
Indeed.
So tell me what Eastside Community Church did this past weekend.
We had laundry outreach on Saturday. We usually do it, the last Saturday of the month, but we did it a week early so that we could invite people from outreach to Easter Sunday.
And did people come?
And they came. We had a great turnout at outreach, got to share the gospel with a lot of people, had some baptisms on Sunday. So we had a packed, service for our Easter service. Several people from outreach came, brought family members or friends. We had 6 baptisms. It was glorious. Awesome.
All right. So, let's go back to COVID. Pre-COVID, how many did you have for Easter?
Like 150.
So you're almost there.
Yeah, we were at like almost 140, I think, this past Sunday.
That's really great. We, this past weekend, had 415 adults across the 3 services plus 95 kids, which was great. And so that was our second highest ever, second only to 2019, where we had 495 adults plus another 100 kids.
Boom. 2026.
2026.
Back in action.
So we're getting close to that pre-COVID numeros.
Yeah, and I've heard similar, it's always up and down. Everyone, some people, Easter is a lower number because everyone in their church travels to go see their family and stuff like that. And so, I don't know. We've had ups and downs over the years, but I've heard a lot of people sharing the same kind of story of really seeing big numbers of people coming back to church and getting back involved. And I don't know, it's encouraging.
Now, as you and I have always known, like the day after Easter is usually a big day of spiritual attack. Did you experience any of that? Not really. We had so after Easter we did also roller skating, because we meet, in a youth entertainment complex. So we did bowling and roller skating, like a block party. Tons of people came out for that too, and a glow-in-the-dark egg hunt on the roller rink. Oh, wow.
And, we were there cleaning up and shutting down, till like 5 or something like that. Then went home and crashed. And on Monday, woke up and drove to Houston to see my mom for her birthday.
Wow. How was your mom?
She's, I think, we've talked about battling a tough sickness. And so, it's a struggle health-wise for her, but got to have a really great visit. It's my daughter's birthday today. So we celebrated my mom's birthday. She got to celebrate my daughter. We got to have good quality time together and got to pray for my mom and encourage her. All the kids made her cards.
Oh, that's great.
So it was a really sweet visit, and just praying for a miracle. Way
to go. Well, yeah, we'll be praying alongside you for that, because that's a big deal.
But yeah, so doing that all day, to answer your question, I was, didn't feel like any spiritual attack or anything like that. Just felt the encouragement from Sunday and then thankfulness for being able to see my mom.
Yeah, I think that I personally didn't get any spiritual attack on Monday, although Adrian and I probably experienced we had a little argument on the Friday before Good Friday. We had a little argument, and then we made it through because we recognized the spiritual attackedness of the weekend.
Boom.
And then Monday, we were gloriously happy campers.
Nice.
But yeah, I do feel like a lot of churches are experiencing the spiritual attack that comes with the, I call it the Elijah complex, where you kind of call down fire from heaven, you kill off all the bad guys, and then one person says something, you freak out, and you get depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I
was like that last year.
Yeah.
I think last year, the Monday after.
Yeah, that's right.
Feeling that.
Yeah, you were. Oh, but here's what's really cool. When we talked about the spiritual attack of Monday, after Easter, people from this very podcast, the listeners that have been loyal followers.
What do you call your followers? Do you have a name? The Mighty Plex Stars, Pastor Plex Stars. I don't know. What do you call your listeners?
Pastor Plex people. And so
some Pastor Plex people.
Yeah, they made a card for me and gave it to me on Sunday morning in preparation for what would be Monday. And I think their prayers were definitely heard by the Lord, and I had a great day.
That's awesome.
That was wild.
Man, that is really sweet.
Hey, so all you guys out there, I really want, from my heart to yours, thank you for that card. Thank you for the way that you have been building into me. It was a very awesome experience. Okay.
Some kids in my church, they at their school, they get, like, points for, like, being good and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and they can cash them in and get something from the store, and 3 kids pooled their points together
Wow.
to get me a Bible as a gift for their pastor.
That is so
So
great.
I felt pretty blessed by
Hey,
that.
that is about as blessed as it
We
gets.
have some great churches.
That is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Man, way to go, church people out there. We're really grateful for that, especially if you're buying your pastor a Bible. That's a big win. Way to go. Okay, so then let's talk about what did you talk about on Easter?
We were doing a series through our core values.
Yeah.
We have 8 S's, and we did the final S on Easter, which was spreading the gospel.
It's a lot of S.
Uh-huh. Final one, we did Matthew 28, so just read Matthew 28, the account of the resurrection, the empty tomb, and then Jesus sending first
sending.
the
I was like,
women. Yeah, so it was about worshiping Jesus and then going and spreading the gospel.
nice.
And yeah, it was great.
Well, way to go. Okay, so for us, we talked about Romans 5:8, and that was fun. Told some fun stories. It was funny that, sometimes I'm a little nervous about preaching through an epistle because there's not a lot of narrative there. Like you're having the preacher creates the narrative around the epistle because you have to kind of formulate what's the story, what's happening, who's Paul writing to, and why and when. And when you jump right into the middle of the epistle, it can be a little challenge. It's not
Yeah.
like you're watching Jesus and the resurrection, the guards at the tomb freaking out, losing their minds, getting paid.
You're saying your sermon was harder than mine
Very
because I did.
no,
That's basically.
no. I'm just saying that. Yeah, it was harder for me not to do it a narrative style because that's the way I pretty much always. I think this is the first time I've ever gone a non-narrative direction.
Yeah.
And it turned out okay.
Nice.
I was sort of surprised. So yeah, we actually had 3 people. We had a bunch of people raise their hand to receive Jesus. I don't know if they all came through, but I had 3 people follow up. So one, I need to send him the baptism course. He received Christ and
That's awesome.
then talked to us afterwards about getting baptized. And then we had an awesome guy from our deaf ministry who said he made a decision for Christ and he wants to get baptized. And then, which was great, and the fact that he was a teenager, he was a high school kid that was deaf, and but he could talk. It was I hadn't experienced that, so he was really gifted at communicating. I couldn't even tell he was deaf. He had kind of like, I had to figure it out that he couldn't hear.
And so someone's translating.
No, he was just talking to me.
No, I'm saying for the sermon.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You have a translation
have a
team,
deaf-
a deaf ministry.
We have a deaf
and
ministry.
through that, he received the gospel.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's amazing. So yeah, our first service has a deaf ministry, and they are so great, and they serve faithfully as volunteers, and it's really encouraging to see. So if you only come to second service, and you don't see first service, it's kind of a powerful experience to watch the deaf worship over on the, as you're looking at the stage, the right side. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So what we talked about was Romans 5:8, that God demonstrated his love for us in this, that while we're still sinners, Christ died for us. And we talked that love compelled Jesus to die on the cross for us. Love compelled Jesus to endure the wrath of God for us. And I got to kind of share some of my fun thoughts on how we actually already believe in hell. We just don't like to call it God's wrath. We rather use the word karma, or instant karma, even more so. And we have just weak theology out there, but we still believe in justice. And so I talked a little about that, and then finally landed the plane on love compelled Jesus to reconcile us to God. That one of the big struggles that we have in our culture is we don't know what reconciliation looks like. We saw our parents fight and then they just got divorced, or we saw people hurt us and we're like, you're dead to me. So that's kind of where our culture has gone reconciliation wise. And I said that God's different and wants to have a relationship with you. So that's where we landed the plane. There was some big news this week also in Christendom, if you will. If you can call it that. I'm not sure if that still counts.
Okay.
I don't know if you read about this or heard about it, saw anything about it, but the Pope passed.
That's right.
So I want us to talk a little bit about Pope Francis.
uh, and kind of like, where you felt that how he did as a pope. As we can kind of mourn collectively for him, thank God for his service to the church, but where were you at on matters of where he was with just his basic theology?
Um, well, for starters, he's Catholic,
Yeah,
so you know,
that's different. I
starting
mean,
off already on for us as Protestants, we are those who said you are wrong
right.
to the Catholics.
So
And
first off, he's wrong. All
yeah,
right, that's
you know,
it is what it is.
so as Protestants, obviously, there's some pretty significant theological differences, but even setting those things aside, he was commonly like had a pretty liberal position about salvation,
Yep.
essentially saying that like it was maybe I'm trying to remember how 6 months ago, or I'm trying to remember when it was, a while back, maybe maybe September. I was trying to look at something. I took a note about it,
Mm.
but he had posted. There's a video of him like at this like
With the
youth,
kids.
yeah,
Yeah.
the youth kids
Mhm.
conference or something like that, multi faith conference, and basically he was saying like all religions are a pathway to
Right.
God and different people trying to get to God. And he was asking the kids questions like, do you think, one religion, I'm not going to say my religion's better than yours, like to the Hindu and the Muslim kid and stuff. They're all, like equal. So very liberal in terms of just like, borderline universalism essentially. And Yeah, I mean, when you're that loose with salvation, as opposed to that was an opportunity for him to be like, "Hey kids, here's what you need to know. There's one way to God, Jesus Christ."
Yeah.
Like, boom. Tell them the truth.
Like, yeah, why? I mean, why? Yeah. So I feel like, um, I think in 2013, he goes, "The Lord has redeemed all of us, not just Catholics, everyone, even the atheists." And you're like,
Yeah, and I've got some Catholic friends
yeah,
who, would be like, "Well, what he meant by that is this," and Pope apologists, and
right,
I don't know. I mean, I don't know his intentions. Only God knows someone's heart, but all we have to judge is their words, their actions, and so
right,
like, there's a lot that he taught that was very liberal, very borderline universalism, and affirming of unbiblical view of sexuality and
right.
marriage, and there was a lot that he was just kind of liberal and progressive on. I think.
Yeah, and I think that's where it should be interesting to see who the Cardinals pick to be the next pope.
Yeah.
I'm so the pope before him, Pope Benedict, I thought was pretty solid. Honestly, he was great. And then now
For a Catholic.
yeah, for a Catholic. All right, so yeah, for a Catholic, he was pretty like salvation by grace through faith, and he was able to articulate it, which is rare.
Mm.
But whereas Pope Francis was like same sex attraction is not a sin. He would just be like in the acting on it category as sinful. Um,
Yeah.
and he at least did not bless or recognize same sex marriages. So anyway, but what he did say was like, "Who am I to judge?" You spoke in reference to gay people seeking God with goodwill, and you're like, okay. I think he meant to emphasize mercy and humility, but not change the doctrinal stance.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely in terms of just his disposition, mercy and humility was,
His
I,
thing.
I think pretty clearly how he carried himself and the posture that he had. But mercy and humility divorced from truth and justice
His
leads you off a
false
cliff.
humility.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I'm excited for the Catholics to get a pope that is more doctrinally in line with even just basic Catholic doctrine. I'm good with that. Um,
I'm praying for a Protestant pope.
yeah. I'm praying for a Protestant pope. I don't think that's going to happen, but I do think it's one of those things where the Pope has so much sway over Catholics, as he probably should. He's the head of the Catholic Church. That I would really like someone to just be theologically on board, solid dude, that would just sort of like kind of bring back a sense of, I don't know, renewal and reformation. But
There you go.
Yeah, I know.
Some reformation.
Yeah. Anytime you have like, because I think their thing is scripture plus tradition plus magisterium or something is where they get church like authority for life,
Yeah.
and
I
I
mean,
think
you
that's.
got papal infallibility. And so
I mean,
if the Pope says, hey,
this is
we're
the thing.
believing Protestant doctrine now.
Win. Like, that kind of, if you wanted to, Holland, you could infiltrate the Catholic Church, become a priest, work your way up, become Pope, and then boom, you change the whole thing.
You don't think it's too late to get started on that path? You think I still
listen,
got time?
I mean, God can do all things. I don't know. All right. Well, all right. So let's talk about where you feel like evangelicals in the culture at large, where are we looking at for, or the next thing that we're talking about? I think one of the things that's coming up is men and men and women roles of men and women in church. I think that's going to be a big thing coming up. I
Mhm.
think how does the church approach homosexuality? I think that's something that the Catholic Church is probably gonna have to deal with.
Yep.
And then how do you navigate a post-literate Christian culture when it comes to things such as like getting alone with God to read the scripture? Any thoughts on that?
Post-literate meaning you're talking about people just being so obsessed with their phones, nobody reads books anymore?
Yeah. I mean, they read stuff. They read text messages, LOL, JK, BRB, but they have a hard time with being focused on script on words for more than 5 minutes.
My take on virtually every systemic and societal problem comes back to fathers, lead your families well.
Yeah.
Do family worship, bring your kids to church, serve in your church, teach the Bible to your kids, love the Lord Jesus, and you can even from a in a post-literate culture, the church can raise a counterculture within that.
Yeah.
Always.
I
So.
appreciate that. All right. Yeah, so I do feel like that. So as the church moves forward in the next era, I feel like this is where more and more men and women's roles, which I think the Catholics have done a pretty good job of making distinct roles for men and women to serve the church ultimately.
Yeah, I think Pope Francis was that was one thing that he was actually like kind of firm on, which was interesting.
He was firm on what?
I believe like he was asked about like women's ordination and he was just like no.
Huh.
And there usually a softer stance on homosexuality,
Right.
transgenderism tends to go hand in hand with egalitarianism and women's ordination. And if I may be wrong on this because I'm not like some Pope expert, but I try to keep up with news clips and videos and things
Right.
like that. But I remember seeing some video of him where he was asked about that, and I think he held the line on that one. And yeah, technically held the line when it came to homosexuality as well, but I think was too soft on that. In terms of like saying uh, we're not gonna officially like bless same-sex marriages, but we are gonna bless the couples themselves. I think is the position that
Yeah.
he took, and just pray for God's blessing on their relationship. So he had some interesting positions that were not really traditional.
No, it was wild. But I do appreciate he said the issue is closed about ordaining women.
Yeah,
That
okay.
to me,
Yeah,
like,
I thought he was firm on that one.
like super firm. Like it's not open to reconsideration. But then he got into the role of women deacons, which we have
Yeah.
at our church because we believe that that's scriptural that women can be deacons. And he goes, "Hey, in 2016, Francis commissioned a commission to study the role of women deacons in the early church. The commission explored whether women could serve in a restored permanent diaconate, a step below priesthood, focused on service, not sacramental duties like consecrating the Eucharist." And then a second commission was launched in 2020, but no decision has been made yet. He's opening to studying the historical role, but hasn't endorsed female ordination as deacons, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Like that's where they're pretty hardcore on the tradition. And, and this is where you can go either way on that. Deacon just means servant. And so, great. Your official role is a your official role of the church is the office of servant, which is great. I think that's great. And for me personally, I kind of go from the route of that could be open to a man or a woman based on women being called deacons or servants. And that's where
Yeah.
it's challenging.
I think my study on that is there's been, you said deacon just means servant. You could go, well, elder just means older person.
Fair
but
enough.
it has a more formal definition.
Yeah,
as
it's
well
definitely
in
an
terms of an
office.
office.
It's an
yeah.
office.
And so if the office entails authority over others,
Yep.
then for a woman to be a woman who's a deacon, if that office is just a serving role, that's one thing. But if it entails authority over men, it would
Right.
be
That doesn't make sense.
violating, 1 Timothy 2:12.
You have to be a true servant.
Yeah.
And that could be organizing, facilitating, all sorts of things to,
Right.
like, hey, as the elders commission, I need you to organize this event. And I don't think anyone's going to be that would find that in violation of, because there's no biblical authority that we're talking about there.
Well, there's some traditions that deacon is an authoritative role.
Oh,
It's
right,
an
right.
office
Like
that carries
Baptist, for
authority.
example, I think
yeah.
the deacon is essentially an elder, which I always wondered why they went that route. Do you know why?
I don't know. It's different. It's look different in different branches of, Baptist churches. But yeah, essentially the deacons had an authoritative role that was functioned like how an elder board would work. Whereas the pastor was focused on just preaching and teaching.
Yeah, it was interesting that, so I guess the only elder of like some Baptist church is that the deacon board, they were not pastors. The only elder then was the pastor, and that was like a pastor-led church.
Yeah. But the deacons, were in charge of so many different things.
Right.
I think trying to follow the model of taking, Acts chapter 6, we need to focus on the word and prayer. And not serving tables, and then you take that model, the deacons take a lot of things off the pastor's plate, but what ends up happening is the deacons end up kind of functionally being in charge of everything other than preaching,
right,
and kind of running the church as pseudo elders.
Right. It gets confusing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's just quick little thoughts on some ecclesiology there for as we take a look at Pope Francis and his legacy post Pope Benedict. Pope Benedict only, I think, served for like 5 years.
Really?
Yeah, and I think he didn't die in office. He just resigned, which I thought that was sort of wild. Yeah, 8 years.
8 years. Okay.
Yeah, so kind of odd that he.
What's the average time for a pope to be a pope? I don't know.
That is average length of a pope. Let's see. That would be
I had to get an
7
average.
to 8 years. Yeah.
That's really okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's kind of wild. So Pope Pius the IX served 31 years. Pope John Paul II served 27 years.
Okay.
So you've got Saint Peter, traditionally the first pope, around 34 years. Pope Pius IX, the longest verified, 31 years, 1846 to 1878. John Paul II, 1978 2005. Pope Benedict, and then Pope Francis just died, so he was at 12 years.
12.
So anyway, it's kind of wild how the popes roll.
Wow.
Yep. There you go.
Now you know.
Yeah, no one's half the battle. Hey, listen, we love your questions. Please send us a shout. Let us know what you're thinking. We talk faith, culture, everything in between. We'd love to hear from you. So from our house to yours, have an awesome week of worship.